Meanwhile, all is not well inside Russia. First, it was Yevgeny Prigozhin. Now, another foot soldier of Vladimir Putin is facing a crackdown. His name is Igor Girkin. He was once considered untouchable in Russia. He led a separatist force. He was the face of the Donbas uprising in 2014. In the same year, his forces shot down the Malaysian Airlines plane MH17. A total of 298 people died in that crash. Girkin was found guilty of shooting down the plane, and back then, Vladimir Putin shielded him. The Kremlin blocked his extradition request. 8 years on, the same man has been jailed for criticizing the Russian president. So how did he fall out of favor? Our next report tells you.
Igor Girkin has donned many hats. He was the commander of a separatist force, an FSB colonel, and later an activist and blogger. Igor the Terrible's wings have been finally clipped by Moscow. Last week, Russian officers showed up at his door and took him away. Girkin is being accused of extremism. He faces up to 5 years in jail. But for many years, he was considered to be an untouchable. Girkin is not your average Putin critic. He served in Russia's spy forces, the FSB. His biggest contribution was in Ukraine. In 2014, he was involved with the offensive in Crimea. In the Donbas, he fomented an uprising against Kyiv, one that led to the present conflict in Donbas. Girkin kidnapped, tortured, and killed a lawmaker and a teenager. But that wasn't his only unforgivable sin. Girkin's most violent crime was the shooting down of a passenger aircraft, the Malaysian airline flight MH17. The missile was launched by Girkin and 2 other men. A court in the Netherlands wanted to jail him. There was an extradition order, but Girkin proved to be beyond reach. Moscow rejected his extradition request. It was a reward for loyalty, perhaps, but Girkin reciprocated with a rebellion. He has been a harsh critic of the Russian establishment, and as Russia's war in Ukraine dragged on, Girkin has been unsparing in his criticism of Russian officials. On his blog, he has called Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, a plywood marshal. Even Vladimir Putin was attacked. Girkin spoke about him with contempt. He accused him of incompetence and called him a non-entity and a cowardly waste of space. Girkin had even created an online club. It was called the Club of Angry Patriots. Using this platform, Girkin live-streamed his critique of the Russian establishment. In May, he warned that a crisis was brewing in Russia and declared his intention to join politics.
A systemic crisis is brewing in Russia, or it is already in the grip of crisis, while the temperature of society is rising. We are on the cusp of very grave internal political changes of a catastrophic character. Now, all healthy forces may and need to create organizations which will take part in the political battle, which is inevitable, and which has already started.
But those plans have been cut short. Girkin finds himself in jail. His partner in crime too hasn't been spared, Vladimir Kvachkov. He's a retired Russian military officer. He too has been charged with discrediting the Russian army. But it is Girkin who will be made an example of. For the longest time, his dissent was tolerated, mainly because of his links with the military and the FSB. There was an unspoken rule. Pro-war bloggers could vent as much as they liked. Within Russia, they were called the patriotic camp. But Girkin went too far. Apparently, he already had a target on his back. From the FSB to the military chiefs, they all wanted more power to crush their critics. But they lacked the political leverage. The mutiny by the Wagner Group changed everything. Girkin's arrest indicates there is now zero tolerance for critics in Russia.